And we are live. Week 2, Boston College. Welcome to the You Are the Program podcast. I think that's the first time I've ever entered in without saying the words, welcome back to the You Are the Program podcast.
It might be.
Trying to throw some curveballs here, trying to get more comfortable here. It is a huge week for the Spartans this week. As always, your typical cast, Dante Rosano, Brian Lewerke, Tyler Higbee. This feels like a pivotal game. We'll get into it. We'll talk about whether it's a must win or not. But man, NFL football coming on tomorrow night, Thursday night. It is. We are here, and I know we've been here for the last week or so, but we are actually this is football nonstop for the next 3 months.
Yeah, and by the time this podcast comes out tomorrow, we're recording on Wednesday. This pod will be out Thursday. The Philadelphia Eagles will be returning for another Super Bowl starting tonight. So tune in and put a smash on the Dallas Cowboys.
I know you were devastated when Donovan McNabb and T.O. lost in the Super Bowl back in 2005 with the Eagles.
Yeah, that was a tough day for me.
Him and the rest of Phillies fans. Phillies, Cubs, Yankees, you name it.
Low-key, I kind of like the Cowboys. Believe it or not, I kind of like the Cowboys. 8.5. No, 8. They're getting 8.5.
Yeah, that's a lot of points. The Cowboys are still pretty good, I think. But
yeah. So let's focus in on the reason that we are here today, and that is Michigan State versus Boston College. There's a lot to get to, and this feels like our first real pregame because we didn't know a ton. We didn't have any tape. We didn't have any game experience on either side of the ball for the Western Michigan podcast. Now we're in. We've gotten a week under our belt. We've gotten a pregame. We've gotten a postgame. We've kind of gotten a couple days to settle in and figure out kind of what Michigan State needs to do. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I want to kick us off first with number 1, rate, review, subscribe on anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, and especially YouTube. We really appreciate, I think our Western Michigan postgame podcast was our most watched YouTube video. And for us, I know that really means a lot in terms of starting to figure out our flow, starting to figure out our rhythm, continue to improve our content. And I know it's something that we're going to continue to push out to you guys. So remember to do all of those things. But week 1 to week 2, and this is where I want to begin today, is always a time of growth. Like I always think when we did our stock up, stock downs, or I listen to any podcast around the country, and I probably found myself doing this obviously with some of my disappointment week 1, is the biggest growth or the biggest overreaction from week 1 always seems to be somewhat the wrongest because, week 1, you come out, it's the first time you're playing a new opponent. It's the first time you're putting your stuff on tape. There's some jitters, there's some sloppiness all around the country. And week 2 is your time where you finally get to watch that film, see what you got on the field on a game day, and you kind of go from there. So week 1 to week 2 growth, how real is that kind of when we would play because you're just so amped up to play week 1. And then week 2, you kind of finally got to settle in and make some adjustments off of what against someone else that you haven't been hitting or seeing for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's very real. You get that first game time experience and you kind of get the jitters out a little bit. Obviously, they'll come back before the game and they'll be gone again once the game gets kicked off. But there are a lot of overreactions after week 1, whether it be good or bad. Vegas has their biggest overreactions, I feel like, from week 1 to week 2, along with fans. So there's a lot of stuff to clean up. Obviously, getting your first game reps out of the way. First game reps of the season, and it's another opportunity to go out and play a good game and correct those mistakes that you made in the first game.
Tell you what, the pregame jitters and the first game jitters are a real thing. I know, especially, I got nervous before every game, even post-college career. Like, I always wanted the
100%.
first play. If I had it my way, I'd want like a screen or a play action, something out in space where I didn't – just something to feel the first hit, kind of get the blood going a little bit. After the first play, everything kind of settles down. So I think the first game, the pregame jitters are a real thing, especially for these guys that played in Spartan Stadium for the first time. But I think I mean, you're going to have the pregame jitters again week 2, but once the game gets going, you get in the flow of the game. I don't expect that to be an issue. I think you can expect to see a lot of improvement across the board on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of parlays perfectly into what I wanted to set up here in our kind of intro discussion, and it's a debrief of our post-game podcast. What do you think? And through my disappointment, Brian's disappointment, Tyler, you didn't think it was as bad. What do you think is the biggest thing that you would like to see get cleaned up from game 1 to game 2 for Michigan State?
I mean, I thought the defense played great. I don't really have a lot of corrections for them. I thought our receivers played well. They caught the ball well. Our running game was obviously very good, almost 200 yards. So I mean, I'm a quarterback. I like to focus on the quarterback. I think Aiden Childs' accuracy could improve. There's some throws where some deep balls, if he just puts a little bit of air on it. Coach Warner, my offensive coordinator back in college, he always used to say, I'd rather you underthrow a guy than overthrow him, because if you overthrow him, there's no chance he catches it. If it's underthrown, there's at least a little bit of chance that he's going to be able to make a play on the ball. So giving the receivers a chance to just be able to make a play, we have fantastic receivers, all 3-4 of them that are in the rotation right now. So giving them a chance to catch the ball, let them run with it, I think is the biggest thing I would be looking for. They're probably not going to be as many wide open guys, and you're not going to have McCray open by 5 yards past the shell of the defense against a better BC defense. So making that improvement, I think, is something I'll be looking out for a lot.
A couple things I'd want to see. First one is I don't expect this game to be a 20-point game at halftime like it was in week 1. But I don't want to see this team get complacent in the second half. I know we kind of talked about putting drives together or not putting drives together like they did last week. We got to get something going in the second half, whether it's running the ball, getting Childs more comfortable, moving the pocket a little bit, whatever it might be, getting him going, getting this offense going in the second half, because you're not going to win many games. I think you asked us, did you ask us this week, Dante, the last time Michigan State outscored their opponent in the second half? I was
going to lead into that. Yeah, it is. The last time we outscored an opponent in the second half was Prairie View A&M. We also did it, I'm pretty positive, in the Maryland game the week before, because we came back to win that game at half. So obviously we did it then, but since then we have not done it. And that was kind of part of my frustration from last week in terms of just how they came out in the second half. So to me, it's going to be up front. There was a lot of rotation, a lot of shuffling with the offensive line. For the most part, the offensive line in the run game played really good. However, in the pass game, we saw in the second half, and I talked a little bit about it, whether it was a schematic or stylistic change that they wanted to make it half and get that pass game going a little, get it crisp, get it going and prepare them for this week. It didn't seem great on Aiden Childs' part. Obviously, there were some inaccuracies, but for the most part, I think a lot of it had to do with what was going on up front. And I don't, we'll never know if that was because of how often they were shuffling, but it did feel like almost every series. So I'll be interested to see week 1 to week 2 how much they continue to shuffle, adding in Luka Vincic back into the mix up front at guard if they're going to continue to rotate Caleb Carter as a fourth guard. So they're going to rotate, I think, 1, 2, 3, about 7 or 8 guys. So I just want to see up front what they're going to do and clean up those things in the pass game, because I think obviously Childs I don't think was great in the second half. The offense in general wasn't great, wasn't gelling in the second half, as evident by getting outscored 6-3 with no offensive touchdowns for Western Michigan. So that is going to be the biggest thing to me in the second half, or 6-2 actually, correct? Yeah, 6-2 in the second half. Yeah.
My second thing was the offensive line. I know this first few games, it might be kind of a feel out process. You want to see who the guys are going to be, but I briefly mentioned it last week. Like as an offensive line, it makes a huge difference playing next to the same guy every game, every series. It makes a big difference. You build trust. You know how the guy next to you plays. I don't expect this team to play 8-9 guys throughout the season. At least I hope not, because that may not be great in the long run. But if it's a feel-out process these first few games, I get it. But come Big Ten play, I want to see 5, maybe 6 guys in there the whole time.
Yeah, I was just trying to see here in PFF, rushing by direction. We talked a little bit about it in the post-game podcast. It felt like over that right side, we were having a ton of success. Over the middle right, so between our right guard, right tackle, we averaged 12.3 yards per carry on 3 rushes. I mean, obviously across the board, the rushing yardage was very good. The rushing attack we thought was very good. That's what we want to see from a Jonathan Smith team. But specifically over that right side, I think we saw our best improvement. And that factors into the offensive line rotation as well, because you want to see Connor Moore at the right tackle. You want to see, I think, Gavin Brocious is our starting right guard. Them continue to find that flow and continue to maximize our offensive production on each of our drives. So that's going to be very important. One more thing before we get into a Boston College, Michigan State specific topic or offense defense. Do you think this is a must-win game leading into week 2? It's early to say that, but is it a must-win game?
I mean, we were all saying it at the beginning of the season that this is a game that we not need to win, but kind of were expecting to win when we were going through our record. I'm not going to say it's a must-win. I'll definitely be disappointed if we lose. I think it kind of depends on how we lose or how we win. Like, if we win, we win. If we lose and it's close and our offense is clicking, our defense is stopping them, they make some big plays, we make some big plays, and they end up winning, I'm not going to be, firing all alarms. But if it's kind of a showing that like we had last week where we come out playing well in the first half, second half it's a little dead, defense is still playing well, the offense can't get anything going, I'll be a little concerned. But I don't think it's a must-win this early in the season.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I want to say it's a must-win, but I think it's just too early. And for it not being a Big Ten game, I don't think it's technically a must-win. But if you do win this game, and if you win it in the way you win it, it can really set you up for success. You build confidence, get you rolling in the right direction going into Youngstown State next week. Go 3-0 heading into Big Ten play in the rest of the season. You're sitting in good shape. But if you lose this game, I mean, you're not dead, but it's not ideal. Not an ideal position to be in heading into Big Ten play.
To me, it's how you define a must-win game, right? I would say for the season's not dead if you lose this game, right? But I think I classify this as a must-win game, not only for the fan base because of how frustrating last year was, specifically this Boston College game last year. It was a game that we had won, should have won. But for the team, it's a must-win game for me because you need to see that success and over a Power 5 opponent who I don't know what their win total was coming into the year, but probably projected around the same range as you, 5-6 wins. You just need to have that success and you need to have that locker room and the leaders. We talked a lot about throughout the 2016 year or in our 2018-19 years when things weren't going great. Those leaders, the voices, and Brian, you as a captain, and Tyler, you were a member of the Eagles, correct? The Eagles Council your senior year, or no?
I don't believe so. No.
Regardless, being an upperclassman, didn't mean to put you on blast here. That was not my intent. But regardless, my point being an upperclassman who is playing and trying to bring along young guys who are not seeing success or trying to bring along guys who are playing but not in a position of leadership, it starts to fall on deaf ears when that doesn't start to achieve results, or the guys that are in those leadership positions or the guys that are in the playing group are trying to, rally everyone else, but then they're not coming along with them. So I think it's a must-win game from the standpoint of the culture, not only of the fans, but of the team and the program. But as you said, like if we lose this game, depending on how we lose, of course, we're going to get upset. Should win this game. But from a season standpoint, it's not over. There's still a lot of ball to play. I think we still have a good team here. But from a culture standpoint, I think it's a must-win for everyone involved. So, all right. That is our intro. Let's get into the Boston College Golden Eagles.
Golden Eagles.
I believe they're the Golden Eagles. Are they Golden Eagles or just the Eagles? Golden Eagles just rolled off the tongue.
It sounds right.
It sounds right to me, yeah.
Either way, Boston College last week beat Fordham 66-10, which seems like a ginormous score. However, Fordham didn't take the time to look at their stats from last year, look at their record from last year, look at their PFF grades. But Boston College beat them pretty thoroughly. Their starting quarterback, Dylan Lonergan, Alabama transfer, 4-star, highly touted. I believe he's a redshirt freshman, so he's a young guy, but he played very well. 26 of 34, 258 through the air, 4 touchdowns. Good thrower of the football, but at the end of the day, the rushing was very interesting from this game against Fordham, and this is where I want to focus on the Boston College offense a little bit. Threw for 458 passing yards, but they only ran the ball 2.9 yards per carry on 37 attempts, not very effectively. And this is something where I think Michigan State's going to have to focus as we get into the defensive keys for the game. It's an explosive offense. You have a talented quarterback. You have Bill O'Brien, is very, very, very good offensive mind on that sideline. So you know they're going to scheme some stuff up. They have a good receiving core, true freshman, blanking on the name, but Lewis Bond is their main target, 11 receptions and 138 yards last week. So they're explosive through the pass game. And I think this is going to be a really interesting test for Michigan State, but that run game is something that I can't get over in a game where they dominated so thoroughly.
Yeah, Lewis Bond, if you recall, was the guy that scored the touchdown against us last year to go up with about a minute and a half left. We were playing like a cover one defense last year, and our DB kind of fell. He scored a touchdown. Aiden Childs went down, made a couple good throws, and then threw an interception to lose. But yeah, I mean, they have some good also to mention. Thank God it's not a red bandana game, obviously, since we're playing at home. But that was
they were whites last year, though. The red bandanas were white last year, so I didn't know if they were going to sneak.
I know. Oh, maybe, yeah. But I feel like it's a home game only.
Yeah, you knew when they announced that last year, we were in trouble.
Yeah, it's like, all right, they're putting their all into this game. But yeah, their running game I think was a little surprising. Their running backs, Turbo Richard, which by the way, sick name for running back, and Bo McCormick. I think Bo McCormick set state record for yards last year in high school in Massachusetts. Not that there's a bunch of powerhouse running backs that come out.
Breeding grounds for prospects there.
Yeah. But yeah, their run game, they only had 2.9 yards per carry on 37 attempts last week. So something that they probably want to get cleaned up. That's probably one of our strengths. It kind of showed last week that we can stop the run. So I think that'll be key for us is making Dylan Longerman to throw the ball. I think he's a good passer, and he potentially could win the game with his arm. But anytime you can make a offense one-dimensional, I think it plays into our favor.
Yeah, I was watching some of the highlights earlier today from their game against Fordham, and I couldn't really believe what Fordham looked like defensively, at least. I mean, they looked like a high school team, and for this Boston College team to only rush for 98 yards, 2.5 yards to carry, was pretty shocking, especially given the final score. So if this Michigan State defense can shut the run game down, kind of like Fordham did, which I fully expect Michigan State to be able to do, make this team one-dimensional. We've talked over and over again about how different it makes an offense when you make them one-dimensional, and I'm putting the faith in the secondary we've glowed about so far this year, albeit a one-game sample, but I mean, you make them one-dimensional, make this guy beat you, I like our chances.
Yeah, I think it's a very simple game plan as early as it might be in the year. But let's just get into the Michigan State defensive keys right now because, obviously the number one thing for me, you'd probably think that it's going to be let's stop the pass. But for me, it's just stop the run. If you shut down their run and you can play with a light box and you can make it tough on this quarterback who's making his first road game start and what's hopefully a hostile crowd, and it should be, you're going to make it tough on them. And they're going to make plays through the passing game because Bill O'Brien's a good coach offensively. They have weapons deeper on the outside. But really just shut that run game down because if you make them one-dimensional, the chances of you making a play, whether it's turning your pass rush loose, lessening up your box so that way you have more guys in coverage. I think that's going to be a huge key to this game defensively. And then we need to see that pass rush. I mean, that kind of goes right into what I had just said with shutting down the run. But it doesn't just get more guys in coverage. It lets you tell those defensive linemen, all right, in these downs, we know that they're not successful with the run. So we're gonna our linebackers are gonna come downhill. But when you see pass sets, you're just absolutely going, and it makes it easier on every single person. So I think for me, this Boston College offense has talent. They have explosiveness. You don't even 66 points. I don't care if it's Fordham. I know, they're Tyler, they might look like a high school team, but putting up 66 points, you have efficiency, you can scheme stuff open, and you have explosiveness. But at the end of the day, I think it really just comes down to shutting down this run.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 66 points you putting up against a team, you're either scoring every possession or your defense is getting a couple scores themselves. So pretty impressive. Dante, you wrote down in the notes here about Dylan Longerman. He hurt his foot in the game. I think it was his right ankle. He was in a boot on Tuesday. So that's something to look at. I expect him to play. I would imagine him to play. So getting after him and kind of making him feel a little uncomfortable, get him off his spot, I think is going to be key. And just kind of getting pressure on the quarterback in general is always a good thing to do as a defense. But especially if a guy's not able to move as well, I think that'll be good for us.
Grab and roll. See how good that ankle feels after that.
All right.
We don't encourage any injury.
All right.
No. Come on. And that's a very key point. He was held out of practice Tuesday. But all of those things just kind of roll into each other. And I think shutting down that run game just opens it up for us. So, all right, let's flip to the Boston College defensive side of the ball, to where they only gave up 10 points last week against Fordham. Again, it is Fordham. So we have to take everything with a grain of salt, but they were only able to get 3 sacks on the Fordham quarterback last week. They got 13 pressures, 8 hurries, an additional 2 hits. So they were getting there, but 3 sacks, doesn't really stick out. So I think it gives this offensive line a little bit of cushion to play with a little bit. I mean, you got to protect Childs, and that's going to be one of the biggest keys, obviously, for the Michigan State offense here is keeping Childs clean. But BC defense versus MSU offense, Brian, without having, a lot of the BC defensive looks in front of us, without having a lot of advanced stats on them against a Power 5 defense, what is it that you're kind of focused on offensively for what can get Michigan State going?
Yeah, I think they only had look at the PFF grades, which you kind of take with a grain of salt after one game, but they only had 2 guys. It was their free and strong safety rated a 70 on a PFF grade and over. So even against Fordham, they didn't play particularly well. So one thing I'm looking for, and I kind of mentioned this in the pregame for the Western pod, is we have a great script, and it kind of shows during the game too. We have a great offensive script for the first couple drives because you script the first drive and you're basically running those plays. You've been practicing that script. There's probably about 20 plays. You've been practicing that script all week long. It seems like we have a great opening script, and then once we have to just call it straight off the book, off the playbook, it kind of stuff starts happening and we're not able to move the ball as well. So I think play calling in certain situations on third downs in the second half when the game's tight, you have some gotta have it plays, being able to run those plays and execute them well, I think is a big key. And obviously I think that kind of falls into Aiden Childs, and I've mentioned it a million times, just being able to be accurate with the football and put the ball in the right spot and let his guys make some plays.
This might sound dumb, but just bear with me. I feel like negative plays and penalties hurt this team more than the average team. Like, I feel like when this team gets backed up, it's almost a given they're not getting a first down. I feel like a lot of teams have the ability to get chunk plays more than we've seen this team in the past. So I just want to play a clean game. This Michigan State offense is capable of putting up points when they stay on track, when they stay on schedule, when they get behind the sticks, when they get the negative plays, the sacks, the holds. That's when this team really gets stuck in neutral, and that's what we saw in the second half. So I'd really like this team to play a clean game and we keep Childs up. How much have we seen them get Childs out of the pocket throwing on the run? I feel like he's not maybe great.
Not a ton last game. No.
I mean, for the times that we did it, it was the boot actions where he's going directly to that first read, that tight end leaking out into the flat, which is always it's a positive play, 5, 6, 7 yards. But that's what I was actually just telling Brian. PFF had some interesting in-depth stats with him. And hang on, I'm going to it right now. So he had 2 turnover-worthy plays last week, both under pressure. But what's interesting is when he's under pressure, the chances for a big play or a big time throw or a chunk play, they absolutely skyrocket. So last week when he was clean in the pocket, his average depth of target was 5 yards, but when he's under pressure, it's 24. And that kind of goes to a couple different things, but it's also his ability to evade sacks, right? So when he's under pressure, I think a couple different things happen. He's obviously very good at evading sacks, but then it comes to that development and growth stage, and we'll continue to monitor that throughout this year. Is he making the right decisions with the football when he's able to get out of that pressure? Because there's less people downfield. He can tuck it and run, which we saw a couple times last year. He can throw it away, or he can make a big play. And last week, it really felt like, number one, when he was able to evade the pressure, the big plays were there, whether he kept it on with his feet for 10, 15 yards, or he found someone downfield. Now, he didn't hit those plays, but he found people downfield, and the chances of big plays skyrocket from there. But when he's not under pressure, I almost wonder if the coaching staff tries to keep it so clean in terms of the reads, the smoke screens, the bubble screens, the play actions that you just talked about, rolling out of the pocket to the tight end in the flat, or it's the quick game that makes the decisions really easy on him, because they know in the back of their head, okay, when we kind of let him roll and when he's going to face pressure, he's going to avoid, we don't want to make it too muddy. We don't want to take a ton of chances down the field with shot plays or play action plays. Now that's just game one. But it's just kind of an interesting comparison, because I wonder how much that kind of factors into the offensive game plan, kind of knowing what he can do with his feet and evading pressure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also his pocket presence was pretty solid in the game last week. Pocket presence is just one of those things that is so hard to teach a quarterback, because there's really no reps that you can get besides live games in being able to avoid pressure and stepping up into the pocket and kind of feeling that guy coming off your backside and stripping the ball out. And obviously that happened a couple times last week where Aiden got sacked and the ball fell to the ground. So another thing I'll be looking at is just his ability to, move in the pocket. And obviously I think last year when we played BC, his running ability kind of really showed. And that was kind of his first, at least in a Michigan State uniform, where he was able to scramble around and make some plays.
Do you think offensively there's going to be more of an emphasis on shot plays? Because I just talked about when he was clean, his average depth of target was 5 yards. That was a lot of quick game. But even when it felt like we were going play action, it really was that first read dump down to the tight end for the majority of it. And those are easy layups for Childs to kind of get going. But how much of that do you also think is an offensive game plan? Not want to show your vertical threat down the field. Obviously, Boston College isn't going to be stunned, because they know that we have a Nick Marsh. They know that we have speed and McCray and Kelly. But we haven't showed them any looks down the field. And I do wonder if, whether it's early on or sometime within those first couple scripted series, if they can get that run game going, they're going to go to a shot play early to a Nick Marsh or to an Amari Kelly over the top.
Yeah, I would love that, to get in a situation where we know that they're going to be in cover 4 or cover 1, and we just kind of get that power look and we play action, boot out. You got 2 guys running routes, one's running like a short crosser, one's running like a deep crosser, and Aiden Childs has 4 or 5 seconds to throw the ball and just launch one downfield. But only do that when you know that they're going to be in a certain defense and it's going to be the defense that we want. And I think it kind of plays into our advantage that we have so many receivers that can now do that, and each one of them can get open. It's not just Nick Marsh, kind of how it was last year. Obviously, we had Montoya Foster last year. That was kind of a little more of a speedy guy as well. But having 3 guys that can really run, I think kind of plays into our advantage a lot.
Just out of curiosity, Brian, I've never really asked you, but as a quarterback, how much did you like a full rollout, like roll out the pocket, or like a half rollout? The reason I ask, I'm just curious because like Dante was talking about taking a shot, and for some reason, the play in the Holiday Bowl, we ran we had a pass 16. I think you threw it to Felton on like a backside post.
Yep.
That play just came to mind for some reason. But what are your thoughts on like a half rollout as opposed to like a full rollout?
I think the half rollout's a little better where you're on. I like him better out of under center as well, where you can really get some depth with your play action fake. And I think it sells a run a lot better when you're under center. But those kind of half rollouts where you fake the back at like 8 yards and set your feet at 15 and you can really step into the throw. I don't love like straight rollouts and throwing on the run. It's obviously a little harder to throw on the run. And you're kind of limited to only one side of the field because you're not really supposed to throw across your body back to the other side of the field. But when you kind of have that half roll, you're still in the pocket. You're just a little deeper and you get a little run action. So the backers kind of run up and then drop back into coverage and you have a little bit more time to diagnose the defense and make a big play.
But that's what – go ahead.
I was going to say real quick, as a lineman too, I love the half rollout because it changes the spot for the D lineman too. Like they're rushing to the same spot almost every time. When you do the half rollout, it changes the spot for them. So it gives you a little more breathing room as a lineman to, okay, the quarterbacks, you got a few extra yards to work with.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's where I was even going to say, I think it's going to be so crucial to establish that run early on. And obviously everyone knows when when you're rolling in the run game, the play action becomes a lot more effective. But even more than that, I do feel like those wide zone looks that we were very effective with, it felt like last week, it gets so much of that full flow sell going. And when you're talking about a half rollout, just for Brian, if you want to explain a half rollout versus a full rollout, but kind of what I'm picturing as a defense, when you're kind of getting pushed downhill on wide zone action, it moves you so much vertically in your first 2-3 steps that in the run game, you can get out of place pretty easily if you're not flying your first 3 steps wide, right? And if you're going downhill, you're going to get pushed out of position. Then when you go to that wide zone play action look to where you're talking about a half roll, not only is the full defense going that way, but also if you break off a route, I would assume to the opposite side that the defense is flowing, as a quarterback that look's probably going to be their pre-snap.
Yeah, so like say I'm rolling out to like under center, I play fake to the left. We got a receiver on the left and the right side. I'm gonna play fake to the left, drop back straight in the pocket, pretty much over the center where I started. So the spot doesn't really move post snap, but during the play, the defense has no clue if you're going to roll out or if you're going to stop there. And that backside receiver that's running that over route, he can kind of run over route and then come back to the sidelines. And the defense is all flowing towards the way that you're kind of booting out. And he can kind of catch a guy off guard in the corners trying to play over top, and the receiver swims him and gets open by 5 yards, and you hit him for like an easy 20-yard gain on the sideline.
Yeah, I'll be really interested to see opening script, as you talked about. Brian Lindgren, I feel like, has been very good opening script. Again, last week, I think it was pretty easy just because of how the offense was kind of rolling downhill, especially with the run game. But opening script is going to be huge. Let's talk about Michigan State keys offensively. Then we'll kind of get into keys to the game. But for me, the Michigan State keys offensively, it's all about this second half. And that's why I wanted to roll into it right off of the opening script, because it feels like we're very good at knowing what the opponent's going to come out in and kind of figuring out how to beat them. But then it's kind of that adjustment phase to where I don't know if it's a Brian Lindgren thing. I don't know if it's an execution thing. But obviously with the struggles we had towards the end of last year, granted, I understand the schedule and the injuries and the defense, everything else. But offensively, I just want to see this offense be able to adjust to what the defense is doing coming out of halftime and find that rhythm again, because it felt like so many times, and including last week is where a lot of the frustration came from, that once that defense adjusts to whatever you're doing, what is your counter to that and continuing to flow offensively in the second half?
Yeah, I think my key is just protecting the football. I think we did a great job of it through the air last week. Those 2 turnover-worthy throws, I'm not quite sure where they were actually in the game, because I don't remember Aiden Childs really putting the ball in harm's way. Maybe it was behind a receiver one time. But I think protecting the football is going to be big. There's a couple times I mentioned earlier, in this pod where he kind of got strip sacked. So having that presence of mind in the pocket and getting the ball out if there's pressure, but not forcing a throw and making a bad decision. And if you win the turnover battle, you're more than likely going to win the game, especially if you win it by a couple turnovers.
Yeah, I kind of already talked about it, but playing a clean game, not setting yourself back with penalties, sacks, all that kind of stuff. But I want to see this O-line put 2 games together back to back. We talked about how they imposed their will last week against Western Michigan. I want to see it again this week. Be able to run the ball consistently. I think we can all say we were pretty surprised by how well and how consistently we were able to run the ball last week. Be awesome to see that again. It helps everybody on the offense. It helps Lindgren call plays. It helps Childs in the pocket. It makes the defense have to think about it a little bit more. So I want to see this offensive line really push dudes around, especially on the right side like last week.
I think that's going to be key as well to make sure that week 1 just wasn't a mirage or just a good week, right? Because we saw it last year in specific games. The Iowa games comes to the top of mind where the offensive line was playing well. Is this offensive line, especially in the run game, going to be able to create holes, create running lanes, and continue to break off chunk runs? So I think that's a great point. Let's get into our now keys to the game, keys to victory, offense or defense. Brian, if you want to start here.
Higbee, you got one? I
was gonna say defensively, 3+ sacks. Get after the quarterback, whether it's exotic. I mean, we've talked about it. Exotic blitzes, guys winning on the edge, stunts up front. It doesn't matter. Get after the quarterback, make him uncomfortable. You talked about him having a bad wheel, so his mobility may not be 100%. So get after the quarterback.
For me, my key is resiliency, because we haven't. It hasn't really felt like we've seen it. We saw it in the Maryland game early last year. And then one of my biggest highlights of last week, especially defensively, not as much offensively, but defensively, whenever they did give up a big play, it didn't seem to matter. They just, whatever. That was kind of the attitude that I remember Joe Bacci, Coach Tressel, when our defense was really rolling in 18 and 19, it was, all right, they made a play, so what now? Like, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get anything else. So defensively, it felt like they answered that. I would like to see that continue, but more so offensively. Whether or not things are rolling, Tyler, to your point about penalties, clean game. All right, if you get set behind the sticks with the holding call, or you get a sack, or you get a loss of yards, how are you going to bounce back? I want to see that resiliency echo through to the offensive side of the ball. Now that can be intra-series, that can be intra-quarter, and that rolls right back into the second half thing of, if you are struggling for 1 series or 2 series, don't let it snowball into you're just blank for the half. So for me, the key is resiliency. Boston College is going to make plays. They're going to make it a little bit tough on you, but resiliency, keeping the crowd into it. We need to turn Spartan Stadium back into an electric atmosphere, and I expect it to be on Saturday night.
I'm going to say win the middle 4 minutes, and whether that be so the middle 4 is the last 2 minutes of the second quarter and the first drive coming out in the third quarter. So whether we have the ball going in, getting a score before halftime, whether it be 3 or 7, or if we're on defense and they have the ball and they're driving down, don't let them score. And then whatever comes out in the third quarter, whoever gets the ball, putting points on the board on that first drive if you have the ball offensively, and kind of flows into our playing better in the second half. If you get a score coming out of halftime, the vibes are instantly up, because obviously halftime you kind of rest a little bit. But if you get a big stop or a big score coming out after half, I think that kind of sets the tone for the second half. And that'll be something that I think if we do that, our chances of winning go up a lot.
I love it. I think we hit a lot of what we want to see and what we need to see. But truly, through talking about a must-win game, this really does feel like a very big game. And now that this week is here, I know in the off season and preseason, I was talking about, well, this should be 3-0. This has to be a game that we win, and I still feel that way. But the biggest thing that I finished with there, I want to see Spartan Stadium turn back into a place where you have 70 to 75,000. It's sold out, And that place is tough to play in because you guys have been in the environments. I've been in the environments. We've all been in the environments in Spartan Stadium where it truly does make a difference. And we need to return to that. And that starts Saturday night. So I'm really anxious to watch this game and see what this team has, because this feels like one of those games that if you want to right the ship and if you want to turn people's attention to you, and if you want everyone to look at the program and start to think, well, maybe this team could be different, start Saturday night. So let's go see it happen. All right. Last order of business before we get out of here. It is our locks. Was not a positive start for us. Mr. Brian Lewerke hit his lock last week. Higby and I both missed. So
Hey,
Brian,
listen,
how about
I started 0-1 last year and I finished that way. So not worried about it.
As Coach D would say, he'd be at the. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, he would literally always make this, whether it was halftime in the game, team meeting, just give the slight angle up with the arm, and he would just slowly do it across his face, talking about trending upwards. Brian, you kick us off.
Yep, I'll lead us off. I went 1-0, taking Ohio State, who is still a wagon this year. Anyone that thought Arch Manning was going to be the savior was wrong. This week, I'm taking USC minus 29. They're playing at home versus Georgia Southern. I think USC put up like 70 last week. And Lincoln Riley has a lot to prove as the head coach, and he wants to beat up on the smaller teams. And I think he will this week. So I'm taking USC to win by 30.
It's a lot of points, but I don't hate it, honestly. USC is, if their offense is what people say it's going to be, that's a good bet. Real quick, before I get my lock, you sent us a tweet today, Dante. We forgot to mention, I don't know if many people know, but Michigan State's win last week, was it the second best win in the Big Ten, according to metrics, just based off who they played and the score and the way the team played, which is a good sign for people that may have just looked at the score.
Yes. And my lock, USC, was number 1 in the Big Ten. So if that makes you want to take my lock more, then please do. Not betting advice, though.
1 second. Justin Thin tweeted it out. It was the most dominant win per net success rate metric. So we talk about success rate here, I think a decent amount. But that's essentially probably what I would assume the stat is without reading the definition of it. It's your 6% success on every single play, which kind of matches the eye test. And I think why Brian and I felt a little bit more frustrated than you, Tyler. I mean, you can look at it both ways, but when the score is not representative of what it felt like we could have done, that's what felt like a little bit of a missed opportunity, but not to belabor it, win's a win. That's good. And it's kind of good to see that in terms of just your week 1 result.
So my lock, we are a Michigan State podcast. We're pro Michigan State. Some may say a little biased. Depends on who you ask. It kind of pains me that I'm doing this because it's going to be hard to watch this game, but Michigan plus 4.5 feels kind of like stealing against Oklahoma this weekend. We all watched them play last week. We all were impressed by Bryce Underwood and the running back. You mentioned it, Dante. The defense may not be what it has been in the past, but it's still a solid defense. I don't know if we know what Oklahoma's going to be. So give me Michigan plus 4.5, going into Norman, keeping it close.
I love that. I told you guys I think they're very, very live as a money line bet to win that game. Oklahoma couldn't run the ball last week against Illinois State, and I can't imagine they're going to have a ton of success against a Michigan defensive front, albeit not the first-round talents that they've had, although we'll see. But I was going to take that if you didn't take it, and you were the first one to hop on that one in the sheet. So I'll give you that one, and I love it as well. I will be going with Ole Miss minus 10.5 on the road at Kentucky. I don't think Kentucky's very good at all. I'm not going to say it, but for those of you listening, you should read between the lines here. I'm going to bash Kentucky a lot. They barely beat Toledo last week. They scored 20 points. I think the final score was 20-15 or something like that. It's closer towards the end. I think Ole Miss losing to them last year also adds another log on the fire of what they want to do and prove here. So I'm going Ole Miss minus 10.5. Quarterback, I think, is going to be good. I think Lane Kiffin's going to have him fired up. I like this spot here for Ole Miss. So
Ole Miss is good to lose to a bad SEC team at least once a year.
I agree, but I feel like early in the season, especially losing to them last year, which knocked them out of the playoff, they have to be motivated.
It's true. It's true. It's a good point.
You know, I kind of love all three of our locks, which is the first time I think I can say that in a while.
I do too.
I mean, this is the second time I'm taking a double-digit road favorite, which usually isn't a good omen. It's 0-1, and Alabama got dominated last week. But yeah, I feel good about it. We'll see how it rolls. All right, that is our Boston College pregame pod. Win, lose, or draw, this is going to be a very fascinating. Well, maybe not draw. There is no draw. Win or lose, this is going to be a very fascinating postgame podcast for us to do. I'm kind of anticipating our postgame podcast because a win and we look good. I think this is going to be a very excited podcast. I think it's going to prove a lot of things that we felt about this team going into it. And the other way, there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about. So we're going to win. We're going to play great Saturday night. The crowd's going to be electric. I can't wait to watch. We'll see you guys over the weekend. Go green.